ready.
So where would you say the temperature of the world is right now in terms of the balance of the masculine and feminine? Because I think a few years ago when we talked about this a lot, it very much felt like, in a attempt to correct an imbalance, the masculine was very much on his heel, kind of getting pushed backward. The masculine was on a decline while the feminine was on an incline, right? Or I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but where would you say the temperature of things are at now? What's your perspective on the dynamics?
Between the masculine and feminine right now, I would say there's a lot of separation is kind of what I feel. I don't know, like there I believe, like, especially like around COVID, it was kind of like almost like this like zeroing point that we had to all kind of go back to each other. We were even like forced to go back to self for a little while, and to figure out self. And then kind of coming out of that, we got put back into like maybe similar situations or the same situation, and was like, whoa, energy felt different.
Like an internal shift had happened and then external. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So like people's magnetism almost kind of like maybe got corrected too in a certain way, where to me, I feel like I started to magnetize more people that were more suitable or more me in a certain sense. Before COVID, I felt like I almost kind of was a whole other person. It felt like,
Right.
and I got that time and just, everything as far as like figuring out myself. Then it kind of like translates now into the masculine and feminine. The feminine kind of they really upgrade through the moon cycles. We upgrade through every single moon. We have this reset and this restart. And a lot of the times with the masculine, it's kind of like a whole sun cycle that takes that it takes for them to come into some of the understandings that the feminine has. But that's also in the more internal world. That's more within the psyche. So as soon as the masculine starts to kind of see what has been like being illuminated within the woman, as soon as that starts to be more expressed, the men pick it up like that. They're kind of masculine energy is air, is fire. So it's very rapid. Moving.
Can you talk a little bit more about those cycles, like the difference in how the feminine versus the masculine experiences some of these cycles?
Yeah. So, women were very intuitive and very embodied. And we tend to feel things, which to a lot of people kind of will still resonate, or still that will connect more to our psyche, which is not always where we reside as people. We definitely are more in this like conscious realm of knowing the outer world, knowing everything that's being expressed and seen, not so much of what's totally felt. So a lot of the times, the women kind of work almost like in smaller cycles, and men work in these bigger cycles. But those smaller cycles is us getting to like know ourselves on different levels as far as throughout the year. We have our winter seasons, we have spring season, the summer, and the fall. And each one of these smaller cycles, even within itself, us entering into summer over this next week, it's always going to be a small cycle within itself. But yeah, even within these these seasons, we have the woman that has these cycles, our menstrual cycle, and that a lot of the time correlates with the moon, which is very much correlated with our psyche. So a lot of that is in the dark for so many people. And so when we were kind of a lot of that space where we were just able to relax, be kind of ourselves, be at home during the COVID time, a lot of us were able to go into that psyche, especially kind of our creativity started to really sprout out. You know, me and you talked about this podcast back then.
Right.
Yeah, so even those factors within ourselves, we were able to really kind of put the masculine and feminine together just naturally because we're not so like, oh, I have to go to soccer practice and then I got to go to the gym and then I have to make dinner and then I have to, everything was a little more chill. So we were able to kind of tap into those smaller cycles, which helped us really see, and even all of us have been going more into those feminine
So just to clarify, like
energies.
those, so you're saying in general, even though, so like the feminine cycle is like a 30-day period, which like you said generally aligns with the moons and lunar periods, versus like the masculine cycle on a similar note is more of a 24-hour, right, with testosterone and things like that. But then you're saying kind of during the COVID time, but then you're also saying that the masculine cycle is bigger and longer versus like the feminine is shorter. Like, do you understand what I'm
Yeah,
asking?
so yeah. So, I mean, everything is, yeah, a lot more about cycles, and the feminine are kind of presenting the energy that is just kind of like in this more, the psychic realm or even in the like subconscious realm that hasn't been totally, illuminated through our consciousness. Or, it
Mm-hmm.
does get illuminated, but it's more like through the dream state and through this like through more of like these states where we're actually like more relaxed and receiving. And so like during the COVID
Right.
time, everything got really kind of interesting because we were able to relax, hone in a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw this very much kind of our own masculine and feminines being able to kind of like figure ourselves out. So then, yeah, when we went back out to the world, everything had been a lot different and we didn't really magnetize and maybe even see eye to eye with a lot of different people. So well, as far as like the cycling goes, we, as the masculine was able to kind of tap into that the feminine energies of the COVID time. We had this like, everything was heating up, creativity was starting to sprout, a lot of eggs, seeds, those kind of like I meant to say seeds, but a lot of those seeds were being being you know planted and harvested, and things were happening a lot faster and a lot faster of cycles. So now kind of coming back out of it, we're seeing so much like constant us being put in our masculine, thinking so much that things between the masculine and feminine feel very cold. And again, it's just kind of like we're on our own cycles in a certain sense where as the women are trying to like, in our different ways, we are trying to birth in a whole new world. But as soon as those masculines kind of get back on with that timing, those tapping in with ourselves, everything
So it's
will.
almost like what, and correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of what I'm hearing is that it's almost like the feminine needs quiet and stillness to complete cycles, and when the feminine has these quiet periods, she can go through these cycles and create growth and create progress more quickly, versus the masculine operates more in maybe a there's less stillness in the masculine. There's more just doing, I guess. Like I'm a little hazy on that. I'm not for sure about that, but maybe like in some sense the masculine almost has more of the feminine needs to kind of pause to allow things to create, in order to plant the seeds, allow it to create. The masculine kind of wants to just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. So during the COVID times when it kind of slowed everybody down, and that kind of coming right after, because I think Me Too movement started around 2016 or so, 2017. And I believe that was a huge catalyst for a lot of the shifts we've been experiencing. And COVID was almost kind of like that incubator that was like the perfect. We already had people starting to ask more questions maybe and start to kind of push at the boundaries of gender roles and things like that. And within that, then you had this period that everybody had a lot of stillness. So suddenly those feminine cycles that were waiting to do their work suddenly had room to breathe. And so a lot more, so the feminine accelerated during that quiet period and stillness. And then as we kind of came out on the other side, there's been some disruption, and people are kind of like, whoa, hold up, because the men were able to really like maybe more bask in their femininity during that period, and then they're coming out back into the masculine world. So the men probably don't, and I think, I mean, I firmly agree with that, because I think the men don't know what the fuck to do with themselves, and I think the woman had so much time, because kind of what I'm seeing and where we're currently at is that I feel like women accelerated so fast that they almost, because I guess maybe during that gestation period when the feminine was able to really kind of build and develop a lot of those areas that it needed to, that then once kind of the world opened up and the masculine opportunities kind of rose back up, the feminine raced ahead, while, you know, a lot of the men that were generally heavy in their masculine are all of a sudden like, wait, what are we doing here? And I mean, we're seeing it statistically, like I think I saw a number today that Asian women are more Asian women, or how you say the stat, but basically more Asian women have success than white American males right now. Maybe it might be a specific demographic. I don't want to just spit out a statistic and say it's fact, but there's all these statistics we're starting to see of, like, in universities and things like that, of the rate of just students alone is higher in, you know, in women than it is for men right now, and that may be as a result of kind of like that COVID period accelerating some areas, while it just kind of shifted the whole momentum, right?
It did, yeah. I totally agree. And yeah, what we got to see is like less of this, more of individualization, as far as like what people really wanted to be, you know, and who we were allowed to be. Especially as women, we have never had the opportunities that we have right now. We've never had this opportunity to be as vocal as we are, to be as seen as we are through social media. And so, there was so many shifts that were allowed to take place, and now we're having to be more accepting of those like individualities instead of just these big, secular ideas that these big groups had as well. But I think through a lot of these movements too, and being able to go back into like dating and stuff, we now like are more firm with self, so then we can be a little bit more firm on the outer world with our boundaries, with all of those things. And women do need to have that like feeling of protection, and now we can kind of give that to ourselves in a certain sense, but I think culturally everything has been shifting just so massively. I mean, even look at religion, as people have kind of even gone back into like religion in their own ways. It's not so secular, like because I'm a Christian, I have to believe in all of these things. It's being like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but this is how I view it. And being able to, ooh. I just got a call and I thought I silenced everything, so sorry.
No worries.
No. Sorry, trying to put it on Do Not Disturb. There we go. Do Not Disturb on. So sorry. My friend, I push ignore it. She calls right back. Just being able to, and I feel like, yes, we got to know ourselves better, and we got to allow these aspects of ourselves to really be birthed to, I know for me, I went from being in a very, I have to be in a relationship. I have my 2 kids, white picket fence kind of viewpoint, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to, wow, I could actually go be whatever the heck I want to be and go experiment with this world. And yeah, I feel like we're all being allowed that just more and more, at our own degrees. And that's allowing us to see that, like, okay, marriage is how long, probably what, 500-year-old concept. It's way younger than religion. So,
Really?
oh
People
yeah.
didn't marry in like
Yeah.
biblical times, or they took wives. They didn't marry though. I guess you're
Yeah.
talking about like in terms of legal standpoint. I guess then it was
As
more
far
ownership,
as
wasn't it?
how things are set up, exactly. And to
It was an
show,
ownership before. Now it's more of a
that your
partnership.
kids, yeah, and to show that those kids that were from that woman in that relationship were, meant to inherit land, property, money, things like
Right.
that. So it was,
Right.
yeah, definitely a lot more of a legal thing. So it's like, was that ever meant to be for us? The way it's been set up, how was it? Are we supposed to be more free and individually people, like, or is that just kind of the timing that is being called upon? A lot of this new age that's being really put into progress is like we had the Piscean age where we had the 2 fish, and yin and yang, and now it's all about the star child, the even the genderless child or both gender, and the cosmic child. That's what the Aquarian age is. Kind of like a hermaphrodite energy too, where you carry both of that feminine and masculine. So it's kind of like we all had to do our own work to really become both of those aspects for, to whatever degree that was. It's not to say like, okay, women have to have their jobs now. They have to do this. We just have to figure out that amount of different energies that really work for us now. And
So do you think it is more of
how
a because
we're able to.
you said kind of like almost like and it's the season that we're in now because you said like are we meant to have jobs, are we meant to do this, like, so you said a few things like specifically, let's just go back to like biblical times, right? A relationship then, which I didn't really think about until you said it, was more about property and ownership. It was not so much about a partnership and
Yes.
collective interest. So that was still very heavy on the patriarchy because the man
And two
owned the land. He
families,
owned.
a business
Right,
together
right,
kind of thing.
right.
Yeah, it was like a
And so
deal. I
we like progressed now to where there's I wouldn't have even thought about that, but I guess just the very act of having a legal marriage that presents rights to both sides, the man and the woman, was already part of the movement of the patriarchy starting to fall, right? Because that was giving power back to the woman, then accelerating to women having the right to
Exactly.
vote, accelerating
Exactly.
to now where women are outperforming men in many business categories and all these areas of life that has never been really done before.
Yep.
And then it brings the question, like you said, is like, because it's something that I think about a lot. I used to be very like, gender roles don't make sense. I think everybody should be this and everybody should be that. And in the last few years, I've kind of started to find more of a moderation with that. Was like, okay, I think everybody has strengths and weaknesses that they should feed into, like their own, and it's going to be different for everybody. And some men have more feminine, some women have more masculine. Whichever it is, I think you just lean into the strengths and weaknesses that you have. But then it still begs the question, though, like you said, it's like, though women are succeeding, are they happier, right? And I think it's more for the woman because I think a lot of men are looking at it more unhappy. But do you think so? Do you think that is more of like a seasonal thing? Is it just inevitable? You know what I mean? That we like where are we supposed to do it the right way? And if there is a right way, what is it? Right? I don't even know how to say the question I'm trying to ask, but
I kind of
like,
no, it is. It's like, yeah, what is the right way, and like, and really, yeah, it is for everybody is so different. When you bring up gender roles, that's yeah, it's incredibly just different. I took a taking an intimate relationships course, and it talks about, back in 1965, I think 95% of kids were born to marriages.
When?
Now it's like
1960?
1965, yeah, 1960s. And
95% of children were
then
born to a marriage?
were born to marriages.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Versus
you could
now?
even, it's like, I think in some areas it's 50%.
Yeah.
Some areas it's like 60%. So
Yeah, that feels right.
it's a
Very
huge
different.
difference. And it's so, yeah. And, how I kind of reference things is, yeah, through like movies, but also seeing like, a lot of the literature that I'm reading. I'm like, go back to a certain year. You can't really find a female, writing about any of this stuff,
Hmm.
especially when it came to religion. So yeah, it's like, what was marriage back then? How do we go about that in the right way? Is the way we're going about things now, is that proper too, as far
That's
as
an interesting
like,
point, though, is you don't really have the woman's perspective from back then. Like that perspective is not recorded. So we don't even have the
no,
ability to study how the woman felt then. So all we really have is what we have now. And, because
exactly.
I mean, because you see all these people trying to, it's just something, everything is a give and take, and like you see, like, yes, you want women to be stronger and have more freedom and have, more independence and all that. But then it's like the cost that we're getting with that is, I mean, an overall, like, I mean, I see more and more talks about sexless relationships and how young people aren't even having sex, people aren't even really dating anymore. How, especially like in Gen Z, a lot, if you ask, a lot of girls or females, women, how they feel about men, it's generally more negative. Ask men how they feel about women, it's generally more positive. But it's just like, there's just, overall, there's a lot of division and
Tension.
a lot of tension for sure.
Think that resistance is something that is absolutely necessary, though. It's kind of like what makes
It's kind of almost forcing the
diamonds.
masculine to also pull it together. It's almost like the feminine, because you mentioned the yin yang, and maybe COVID was kind of that moment that allowed a lot of people, because I'm just saying women, but I guess it's just the feminine in general. But it was kind of a period that maybe allowed a lot of women to combine that yin and yang, because it was kind of their moment, and I think it left a lot of men feeling confused, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we're also, women, we do well when we're more being able to be confined. Maybe not so much as men. Men are where their drive does take them places. It makes them go and get food and shelter, and there's all of these like different aspects that, women, were able to just kind of sit back. I know a lot of women got into esotericism, deeper into religion, spirituality, a lot of new goddess worship. We see a lot of that now, where women are accepting a lot of these goddesses that got really they got really remodeled, basically, or remade into a lot of these Virgin Marys, the Black Madonna, all of these things. So yeah, a lot of being able to kind of step outside of this world that's just go go go, very masculine in general. It allowed us to just kind of sit back and like recognize those aspects of ourselves. That's when I got really into card reading and herbs. And when we think about even what our world is made up of, especially like healthcare, the way we nurture our kids, all of these things, these are like the natural things that women would do, just kind of,
Right.
being back out. Yeah. So, and then what happened was the patriarchy just kind of stole that from us, like,
Hmm.
no, that's witchery, witchcraft, whatever. And now they're
And
trying to
that's how we now
resell it
have
back to
doctors that
us.
just give general advice
Yes.
and help that doesn't. There's very little like actual care in a lot of healthcare. It's just very, very rough, very, very masculine energy, I guess. It's very much like slap a
Exactly.
band-aid on, rub some dirt, and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much a deep
That's
connection.
exactly. And that's actually a great way to kind of look at the masculine and feminine is like the feminine would be kind of like that nurse care, the, spend time with the body and like really helping that healing aspects, where the men are like, okay, we need to go find cures, we need to go find the medicine and things like that. So yeah, it's just very interesting that yeah, when we got to really play those roles for a little while, how much the world changed. People started to feel energy way more. I really
Mm,
question why were trying to keep us 6 feet apart, because that's how far our auras go.
mm,
So it's just like, yeah, and you could even see in the outer world how much growth we had at that time. Things were starting to like regrow. We had a lot of vegetation come back and a lot more, of the insects and everything switching. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's like at what point do we continue into this old world that almost seems like, there's certain points of like even social media that almost are seem like they're kind of dying out already,
mm-hmm.
you know? And so, yeah, just allowing, I don't know, allowing and that just kind of naturally just births and cultivates and and grows what it needs to in so many different ways.
What do you think about, you kind of mentioned you wrote this capstone recently about stripping. So like, what's your kind of thoughts on sex work? Because that's also a something that's like, I mean, I think in many ways this OnlyFans and things like that is giving a lot of power back to the woman. Again, that's the woman kind of reclaiming their divinity and their own, the right to their own bodies and the right to make money off themselves. But it's like a give and take. Like with the woman reclaiming that power, you're also having a lot of young girls, as soon as they're able to, feeling that that's the way, that's their future, that's the only way to. But I guess that's looking at it in a negative sense. Period. So I guess just what is your thoughts on sex work and that being, honoring of the feminine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You know, when we think about who set up the standards for our sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
some guys a couple thousand years ago, it brings up a lot of questions. Well, okay, well, if we're gonna go buy this text, this book, how are we going to, also kind of dig in to see what was going on back then. Where all of these like religions and everything are birth is more than likely, there was a lot of practices that were very, even to this day, we would see as very like, for example, the Greco-Romans, the men were the top notch. Everything,
Mm-hmm.
with anything woman or lower. Actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. So there was men, and then there was the young men, and then there was women, young girls. The young men were seen as women until the men initiated them into manhood, and they would basically rape them to
The
get the
young men.
woman out of them,
Oh.
to get the woman out of them. And so when you think about some of these things that were going on at the time, yeah, I kind of don't doubt that they were pushing a lot of like, asceticism, celibacy, a lot of these things. So when I look at, why do we look at sexuality so bad, as a bad thing, as a sin? We look at, yeah, some of the first stories that a lot of people, especially when it comes to religion, we see Adam and Eve being the one that's responsible for the fall and for the sin that the world partakes in. And
Mm.
so, yeah, it's just right off the bat, telling how
And it's very black
how
and white.
much. Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, when you look at when this time everything was being like written, you're like, oh gosh, yeah, there was definitely some very wild sexual practices going on. So, I'm sure that the world needed to have that change. Well, us, Christianity completely taking over the entire world, really, those teachings have been really pressed upon us, which has shown us that sexuality can't be so suppressed that it goes away. It's suppressed
Mm.
and it goes into the psyche and into the shadows. And so when we start to think of, okay, this is bad, well, you tell you tell a young boy, sex is bad. If this happens, this is bad. This is bad, and something like that happens to that boy, he's going to be like, he's going to think of himself as the devil. He's going to,
Right,
as some kind
right,
of
right.
darkness. Oh, this is a sickness. Oh, somebody put a spell over me. Daemons were known as spirits in the Greco-Roman world. So those were, having a spirit taken over you. So, that makes that shadow around that sexuality even bigger now. And so, yeah, I think that we have suppressed sexuality so much into the shadows that it's created quite the shadow.
Right.
And that I think that is the biggest shadow we have to face. And we are
So it's
facing.
just overall almost just it's like I mean, I think shadow is a good word. It's there's a lot of it that is unseen, and because it's unseen, it becomes feared, and because it's feared, it becomes taboo.
Yes,
Would you agree?
exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, yeah. And then, our psyche plays things very, our body does very different things when we feel like we can't, we have to suppress something as far as how we
Mm-hmm.
think, as far as how we speak, and as far as how we express ourselves. So, yeah, it absolutely has kind of created this huge collective shadow that we're unfortunately seeing in different files and different things that, when it comes to our leaders and these people that we worship, really, at the end of the day. And yeah, it starts to create this very weird, ugly world. And, from what I've heard, that like, you know, um, the whole sex work in general, all the trafficking and everything is kind of what keeps the United States up and running.
Yeah.
We would absolutely have a huge collapse if those things were not a part of our system. So it's time for us to take a good deep look at things.
That's crazy to think
Absolutely.
about. So how do you and women, like I said though, kind of running the ship now? And I mean,
Yeah.
if they are, do you think women are running the ship? Do you think women are in control of their, with like OnlyFans? Do you think that a platform has given, or through like because I know you've talked about that club you worked at. I don't know if you still do, where it was different from like the typical strip club. Seemed like it was
Yeah.
more of a safe space for both sides. But would you, yeah, so do you feel like those things have been benefiting the feminine and helping women to reclaim some of that? Because I mean, again, we're talking about biblical stuff in the past, and a lot of that was just pure ownership. So women didn't really own their bodies, right? And so now women are
Yep.
owning their bodies and having the ability to use it as a business. But then the common, argument against that is like, oh, but that's, something that especially a lot of men will just say is that, there's not, you shouldn't have to sell your body, or it's almost looking at it like that's like it's a negative thing. But then you also made a good point that who decided what was right or wrong in terms of sex, who wrote those laws, who decided what age people can marry and what age people can have sex, like that was all men hundreds of years ago too. So yeah, what do you think?
So
How do you
yeah,
think that
I feel like like speaking of that, that shadow, I wanted to, I felt pulled to really diving into that. And I feel like that's kind of there's the hero's journey that is more of the masculine journey. And then there's the heroine's journey, where you kind of go into the underworld. A lot of people see this with the Persephone and Hades mythology. But yeah, the woman going into the underworld and basically like gaining wisdom. Because a lot of these experiences are in the shadows, so they're in the dark, and so it has to be really felt. And you have to use your own kind of illumination to kind of illuminate what is going on there. So
Right.
when you take back and it's like, okay, where did our standards and where did these rules and principles come from with sexuality? You go back and you see like, oh, okay, yeah, they started here. This is when the Bible's written. That's what I refer to because I grew up Catholic. So,
Right.
but yeah, so then when I go into
But
that,
I think
I'm
you're
like,
right. I
oh,
think that has the world's been ran on Christianity for the most part. So I think you're right to say that that is
exactly.
kind of where a lot of the foundation came from, especially in America
Yes,
for
and
sure.
what we think about, yeah, when we think about our sexuality. And so yeah, being able to kind of go through that and like kind of unweave everything, I really was able to go into the strip club and just my goal was to like bring my Jesus Christ consciousness to these places. And, you hear of Jesus going and hanging, not hanging out, but he's amongst, the prostitutes, people that have, sinned, we'll say. And to be able to understand some people at their most what we would see as maybe more negative aspects, darker aspects, shadowy aspects, you begin to realize that those aspects of them have just been very suppressed aspects of their just human nature. And when you start to suppress those human nature things, you start to just suppress your growth, your who you are, and your kind of self-initiation into like manlyhood too, And so a lot of men will stay stuck into more of that like kind of teenager kind of thought process around sexuality because maybe that's when they started to suppress those shadows. And so those shadows are kind of like little teenager shadows in a certain sense you could think of, because, those are, yeah, they happen when we're younger. Now, of course, there's these really darker situations of, kids having something bad happen to them, right? So they really end up splitting themselves and they kind of make a whole other aspect of themselves that they have to keep hidden. And and it starts to just make a whole collective of, world of all of these kind of shadows interplaying with each other. So when you start to see past those aspects of people and you kind of like, like, oh, okay, I understand why you do that. Let's talk about it a little bit. So yeah, when you talk about like the place I got to work at was we each had our individual rooms, and we had a security guard standing outside, and they have like kind of like a peephole to make sure they could check in on us. And it was just very one-on-one, and a lot of things that like these men were either very like, there's a lot of different ways that men go about the whole thing. A lot of them are like, oh, I've never been to a strip club. I never do this. They're kind of like have to hide it. Like I'm kind of like a mom figure to them, or they're very, just come in and like, do you, how much do I have to pay for this? And you get to kind of see those different aspects of people come out. And when you kind of like allow it without judgment, of course, nothing, too crazy, but you start to kind of witness people and then, for me, I have a big understanding being an RN as well with mental health and psychology. So it was just an amazing experience because I felt like I was able to kind of go into an experiment a little bit, but also see how I can help people. you know, how I can help those women that have trouble with being around men that are a certain type of way, you know, men that need to help themselves get back to like, hey, maybe I do just want whatever, you know. There's
Right.
so many dynamics of relationships, but um, yeah, yeah,
Something
I
kind of came up
think
for me while you were sharing all that.
please.
So kind of like, first of all, I think Chase Hughes, this guy I was listening, he was talking about emotional debt, and I haven't looked too deep into the science of that, but he was explaining how we carry emotional debt. So, if as a child you were screamed at, and if you reacted, it would make it worse, you had to just shove it, bottle it down, and that creates an emotional debt that doesn't really ever go away. And so over time, you basically accrue all this emotional debt, and so that's why when you get people that are adults that blow off at the smallest little thing because they have this emotional debt that hasn't ever been processed or taken care of. And you really can't move past something. Like if you repress an emotion and you don't allow yourself to feel something, it doesn't just go away. It kind of goes into this box that becomes a pressure cooker over time. And back to sexuality in many ways being taboo. So both like women are told don't show your bodies, or you're indecent or whatever, and then for men, they're encouraged. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I feel like for men we're encouraged. I was like almost discouraged from a religious aspect. I felt like I wasn't really free to even really date. I definitely didn't feel like I was free to watch pornography. Anything around sex or dating felt taboo to me in general. I feel like as a kid, I think it's similar for a lot of guys. I know some guys probably get a dad. They're like, dude, go fuck a girl, and that's a very different dynamic. But
For us.
still, that creates this kind of emotional debt over time, and it's not one that you can't just ignore it. So like I'm a firm believer in, like, you can't tell me the fire's hot. I need to put my hand in the fire and feel it myself and decide how hot it is for me to really
Absolutely.
understand it fully, right? And so for you, like you said, I mean, part of your arc here is you felt like this is part of your heroine's journey, like you said. I thought that was really interesting, because I mean, I totally understand that from the hero's journey, from the masculine side. Like, I've thrown myself head first into the darkness because I was like, I need to figure this out. I need to see what the darkness is so I can understand who I am. And of course, doing that in my own way, and I can totally see how the heroine's journey kind of goes that way. So it's almost like, I think let's see if I can wrap this thought around. Basically, it's almost like kind of back to this kind of pendulum swinging. It's like a lot of women right now they've had all this sexuality repressed their entire life, told to not to be indecent, don't be too flirty, don't do this. So all this emotion has been repressed, and it has to come out for healing, though. And so that's what we're seeing with the rise of OnlyFans and the rise of things like that, is a lot of women are finding their way to release that emotion. I'm going to make an assumption that some women are doing that and maybe having a lot of success, and then after a few years they're saying, okay, cool, and they move on, they go on to do other things. So, and then I think it's interesting too, just to also like add one more point. You're mentioning a lot of these guys, how a lot of these guys are kind of stuck in see boob, grab boob mentality, and that's just that's because that's what was repressed there. So they don't really know anything more than that, and almost in a way, how can you grow past that if you're not given an opportunity to experience what's actually real, in a sense, I guess. So it's almost like a man can't quite grow out of that teenage mentality until he's really like given it a chance, because he's again told to, I guess, repress that, told that that's wrong. And so it just kind of creates this, like, again, this pressure cooker of emotion and debt that needs to be processed somehow, and we're seeing it processed through a lot of the sex work now, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I think, we've been as women, especially with the OnlyFans community, we and this goes kind of a lot too with like, why are we here? What's our purpose? And for me, there's, a spectrum. How I kind of look at this is there's a spectrum of women, we'll say. And, for, let's say more for the like the redder color of that spectrum, we need to have more of the, this like more sexuality expression. We need to have more of this, we create more of this kind of sex work, the prostitute, the harlot, all of these aspects of human sexuality, which again have been so suppressed for so long, so we don't really know what that's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to, how it's supposed to act, anything like that. And then there's, I feel that there are supposed to be those Mother Teresas, and there's supposed to be these women that don't feel any type of way towards sex. We talked about the sexless relationships. And so, yeah, I think we're finally like able to fill out what we need to fill. And for some women, that is, I need to, there's a lot of reasons why people go into sex work. I have worked with a lot of lesbians that don't like men at all. And they want to do it for just the money. There's some women that see something deeper and get pulled to this like sex work in general because they feel like they have to like do something about something that's going on inside of them. Sometimes, women, we face a lot of, sexual abuse, just kind of that patriarchy society. And so when we're able to go into this place and do whatever we want and become open and vulnerable without anybody, actually we're getting kind of cheered on and being kind of worshipped and paid for it. It feels like this new level of just liberation and freedom. And, we're even starting to see more men, not just even gay men, all types of men going into sex work. Prior to this, it was a lot of gay men that were, but all types now. And so, it's, especially like around the, the 60s and 70s, I feel like that's kind of like this huge moment in history where we were like, we pulled open those psyches through psychedelics and, all these civil rights movements that gave people rights after slavery and everything. So we're starting to, to see the kind of the repercussions and everything after us having so much freedom, and I kind of feel like that with, my journey as far as into sexuality is, you kind of have this moment where you're like, oh, psyche's open, like all of this stuff's been inside of me, like, fuck it, I didn't want to rip it all off, I'm talking both metaphorically there too, you
right, but no, I mean, I think again, back to a lot of repression, and I think we like to think that for some reason we like to think that human growth should be pretty, should be well put together, should be well articulated, should be well acted out, should be done without mistake, when the reality is that, like, I mean, you kind of go back, you kind of mentioned briefly, like, purpose, like, what are we doing here? And I mean, I think with like the masculine and the feminine, I mean, it almost, in a super condensed version where big consciousness split into little consciousness, but then I think it's almost like bigger than that, because I think big consciousness split itself into little consciousness that doesn't know what itself looks like, and is also like intentionally going to create a lot of friction and tension that will require collaborative effort to rejoin. But along the way, each side is going to think the other side's the problem, and this is just this whole thing.
We start out the biggest trauma that we start out with is the separation from our mother, and just it's this kind of like separation of really seeing ourselves separate from everything outside of us, but really it's just kind of all a lot of like mirrors and us witnessing consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, what happens when we're witnessing consciousness when it's not so repressed and has to be like fit in this little tiny box, like, okay,
Right,
well,
right.
you could show it off, but it has to kind of like, has to stay here. And it's like, no, it's like we're opening up these very big parts of in our psyche. And even without psychedelics, a lot of this is happening just with like things that we're seeing going on with our son. Why with all this stuff was called like COVID was called what, Corona at first, like the
Mm-hmm.
coronas of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's a lot of just upgrading that's going on and enlightenment with the sun energy and this illuminating of those like darker aspects of ourselves is enlightening us in so many ways that kind of less, we're becoming not so materialized and like oh, this world, like we have to this is it, like this is this
Mm-hmm.
material world and being so materialism, and there's like, oh wait, there's some spirit in here too.
Mm-hmm.
There's oh wait, actually there's a lot of mentality too. And so yeah, when we're just like allowing ourselves to become more enlightened by really illuminating all of those different aspects that we're able to see or weren't allowed to see. Yeah, it's has not been pretty at first. That's really much,
Right.
like a lot of psychedelic trips is like you see an aspect of yourself in a whole other way, and it's like it's either not pretty or it's like, oh my gosh, I can be so much, I'm so much bigger. I'm connected to everything. But yeah, it really
I don't mean
does
to get
resonate down.
abstract with this, but it's almost sometimes like, can you, um, I'm just gonna go back, use the example of a man stuck in teenage body, like see a boob, want to grab the boob. Can we? Can a man progress past that point solely through intellect? Right, being told through a book, told through wisdom, told through whatever. Hey, grabbing the boob is not the best thing in the world. Like beyond that, you want to really connect with a person in a like true state of presence and union, and that's way beyond just getting to have some lustful desire satisfied, right? But can you experience that without grabbing the boob first? You know what I mean?
I mean, it kind of does come down to embodiment and like experience, So, yeah, we could, like again with like religion is that we're like told to read this book and just to act a certain way, but really what religion is like embodying and like really experiencing all of these different aspects of our human nature. That it's like, if God didn't want me to do this, then why,
Right, and like
why
that
can I
almost what
be
feels
like
like is
him?
right, or like to use a different example, like don't hit people, right? Don't punch people, okay?
Hmm.
So it's like I'm told don't punch people, and then the first time I get in an argument, all this, you know, what is it? Cortisol and whatever floods my
Hmm.
body, and in a state of chemical feelings that I don't know what to do with, I punch a dude because that's just what my reaction was. And then it's like,
Hmm.
oh shoot, they always told me not to, and now I realize why. Maybe because let's say that was my friend, and I hurt him, and now it suddenly it's like, oh, okay, I understand why I was told not to punch him because it'll hurt him. But could I have learned that
Hmm.
without punching him first? You know what I mean? Can we slowly actually learn that stuff through intellect? And I think what I'm trying to say is like giving more. I guess I'm trying to make a point for giving people more grace for stumbling around and trying to figure out how to do this right, because maybe you can't always intellectually figure out what's the right thing to do until you do it wrong first, you know?
Absolutely.
Which is I mean, it's a
Abs-
messy thing to say when we're talking about sex and a lot of this stuff, and especially in a world where a
hmm.
lot of people, like you said, especially women, are sexually abused. And I don't all want to sound like I'm saying, yeah, men should just act on their impulses so they learn it's not right, but but it is like
Hmm.
such a like tricky thing, because I do feel like a lot of men are trapped in this kind of teenage body and have a lot of repressed sexual desire because maybe they were kind of, like you said too, where, you know, there's and same with the feminine, the women were told to, you know, cover up and do all these things. You can't, don't dance, don't be provocative, don't, you know. So it was all this repression on both sides, and to discover that they're almost, you know, it's almost like you have to do the thing to get past the thing.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
And I mean,
that's
that's also
why
that's why we see a lot of women. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, like we see women partaking in like the OnlyFans and all these things is because like yeah, as a society, we really do have to go experience what maybe the church was trying to prevent us all from doing, you know, or
right.
yeah, we do have to experience some of the risks that come with that. You know, it's just like being a parent to a child. You have to like, you kind of like, okay, yeah, my mom is extra, but sometimes there's, yeah, she's super right. I could really fuck myself up.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. I started thinking of all these things, but yeah, it's just us being able to go, yeah, you know, if like, okay, I really want to wear this sexy outfit, you know, but you know, I feel very nervous. I've never done this, you know, so going out and experiencing that, you know, I could sit there and I could really be like, okay, yeah, they think awful about me, this and that, but it's really kind of like how my mindset is and what I've been programmed with, and
Right.
how I see the world, and you know what it sometimes gets mirrored back to me, and yeah, it's a very, it's like you do have to go out and like kind of experience it. It's kind of like a doctor just learning the book to, you know, memorizing the book, but never actually going and doing surgery. It's like, well, I watched this video, I read I can read you, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 of what to do, but do you really want that surgeon, you know, doing surgery on you? Yeah. So I think when it comes to like sexuality, I think we all have to go out and, you know, do what we're called to do. Some people, I don't fuck sex, you know. People have told me that as a woman, I should be sexual. In a relationship, we have to be. People don't want to have sex now. You know, I want my woman to have sex with another man in front of me. You know, like all of these different dynamics that we're able to allow out. Like, you know, you give people the openness to do it, you'll see what comes out eventually, you know. And I think there was this, there's this artist who does these really bizarre art shows, and she put out a bunch of like surgical instruments on this table, and she just was standing there with just like a shirt, bra, and underwear, and like pants, and she's like, do whatever you want to do to me. And so some people kind of went up and they would like give her a little cut on the finger. You get, you know, after so long, everybody cut her clothes off. She's completely naked and she has cuts all over her body and this wild,
They're
wild
actually
stuff.
cutting her body? Wow.
They're actually, yes. She's Marina Abramovich. She's like more of this, like, so you give people the opportunity, people will take it, you know? So it's being able to like, okay, well, let's give them the opportunity and let's see what all comes out of this, you know? We see people's human nature real quick in a lot of situations. Yeah, it's... I
want to like ask, but what's
world.
right or wrong? But I'm afraid the answer is there's not a right or wrong. You know, like example that kind of popped in my head. So is it right or wrong for women? Should women dress more provocatively, right? Or men? Should people dress provocatively in public? Should you dress decently, or is it okay to be, you know, showing a lot of skin and whatnot? Well, from a man's point of view, it's like there's discipline only goes so far, right? Willpower only goes so far. If any human putting their willpower to the test will eventually fail. And so the argument's made that, showing skin makes men, their thoughts start running, and the ideas start going, and that's happened because skin was showed to begin with. But maybe that. But is that true, or
was it that
implanted?
we started putting stuff? Yeah, that we started getting programmed with that. That's what it almost seems like.
Was the man just programmed to begin with to over sexualize? But then it's weird because as a part of the sexualization, it's also highly exalted, right? Like, somebody's private parts are, aside from sexual abuse and things like that, are highly praised, and like it's the ultimate achievement, right? It's the ultimate trophy to get the pussy or get the dick or whatever, right? So,
no, I think there's
Go ahead, sorry.
We can even do this. No, I think there's a huge spectrum, once again, of just like taking it from right or wrong, just putting it into, we could go from light to dark, but all the colors in between, there's
because it's all experience at the end
spectrums.
of the day. It's needing to experience all of the things, right?
Yes. And I feel like you need that whole full light spectrum to be able to see the true picture of what is trying to be created in a certain sense. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's so hard to just that like, this is right, this is wrong. And it's like, for some people, some areas, it's like, some of the times those standards are, having those standards are very nice, because some people could be very too, can be over sexual,
Right.
all these things. You do need to have those. But it's like, but is there a lover for that person? Hell yeah, I'm sure there is, you know? Are there people that are willing to do the craziest, wildest shit, or people willing to do nothing at all, being asexual? Hell yeah, there's a lot of people that fit those spectrums, and I think now it is kind of harder to find, because we've been choosing to leave our like little sectors of beliefs, really, and being able to kind of explore all around. And so it is kind of hard to I don't know, not be around the same type of people that have those exact same beliefs and practice the same exact way. Things are so much more spread out now, and that's the beauty of that, is being able to learn, like, oh wait, you guys don't see a woman and her titties out like as sexual? Wait, what?
Right.
You guys have nude beaches? What?
Right.
I could go somewhere and there's going to be wieners everywhere,
Which it is funny, because at least for me, I think context matters a lot, and there's been studies proven on that context changes what's allowed, right? Like there was that study where people basically shocked somebody on the other side of a wall to death, even hearing their screams, because a doctor in a lab coat told them to. Right? I don't know if you've heard of that study. Have you heard of that? Yeah. So just for those that haven't heard, basically, there was people led into a room. A doctor with a lab coat and a clipboard said, "Hey, you need to shock this guy because he did this wrong," and then they would be told to increase the voltage up to the point that person should be dying. The person would be literally screaming on the other side of the wall, not actually getting hurt, but it was proven that you could make somebody kill somebody else if you put them in the right context for it. But then with the nudity thing, it's interesting because, like, when I'm at Burning Man, I'm not really looking around at everybody in a sexualized manner. Like, I'm appreciating beauty, right? I can look at somebody and be like, oh, they're beautiful, but it's not feeling like sexual. Versus here in the city, if I see somebody that's dressed a certain way, it's almost like it does kind of and I think that is programming, because if you see somebody walking in the city dressed with a lot of skin, it is pretty much assumed which incorrectly oftentimes, but I think a lot of the assumption is, oh, they are interested in sex. They are trying to get attention. They are trying. It is some sort of a mating thing. Like they want people to look at them in a sexual way, when that's not always the case. But
Yes.
yeah,
I
and
laugh.
I think that has to be programming for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I laugh because, um, I putting myself on OnlyFans, being a dancer, I for about 3 years total of all of that, maybe almost 4 years with the OnlyFans. Didn't do it for very long, but yeah, you show that aspect of you, and people automatically assume that you have sex for money, you're easy, you're all of these things, and yeah, I've seen some wild side of friends.
And it
I've
invites all these
had
other, yeah, yeah.
It invites it in for sure. And what's so funny is like people don't realize that, like I was practicing celibacy majority of that time. Even when I went to Vegas, I have yet to take money for sex. Period.
Right.
I just, it's not that I'm against it. I don't have judgment against it because I think it's so beautiful that people have that opportunity. But I personally just didn't have the balls to do it, we'll say. And so,
Fair.
yeah, but people made up their entire story about me. A lot of people think I live out in Vegas. Yeah, just the most wildest stories.
I think that's just again
I've
proof
heard.
of the programming thing, because you see you going to Vegas doing OnlyFans, and it
Yep.
just, the only narrative people know to jump to, it just automatically creates this, and it's funny how like, and I mean, I can definitely understand it. Maybe you can too, because it's like I can absolutely see why somebody might have those assumptions. Like I personally, I didn't, because
course.
I knew you better. I mean, we had more conversations. I
Yeah.
kind of understood
Yeah.
what was going on, but
We were able
like
to talk.
from the outside, if you're just on the outside looking in, that's kind of what social media does. Is you kind of, we get. I think we don't realize how locked into our internal monologue narratives. We don't realize how much that defines how we perceive reality. And it's sad, but I mean, also I think that is like, it's part of human nature too. I think it's part of the way that we're able to adapt in a world that's so overstimulating, is we just have to make a lot of assumptions and autopilot a lot of brain, thought processing to just look at context clues and then put a narrative together based on what we can see.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the fun part now too about people is like, we do see so many things, and we can kind of like, we try to place them into, oh, this is the category that they fit in. But nowadays it's like, a Buddhist can be dressed how I'm dressed right now, and be walking around. That was actually one of the cool, for my intro to Buddhism class. That was like the introductory, is like, what does a Buddhist look like? What is a Buddha? What does a
Right.
true Buddhist look like? And of course you think kind of like a monk right off the bat, but
Right.
it's like, there's as many religions as there are people, and everything just looks so different for everybody now. And yeah, I mean, if I didn't have, I'm always wearing my rosary and things too. But if I'm not wearing that, I could totally look a little bit different, or have
Right.
some more different thoughts around me. So yeah, it's so interesting, but it's so cool now too, because a lot of people, even like MAGA people, all of the spectrum of people, there's some really cool people that you can like relate to now. Everything's not so, well, for me, I feel like the world is just less.
Well, I think the trick is, I saw a quote today that summed it up. I'm terrible at remembering who said what, but I think it was Joe Hudson, and I think he said something like, I'll just paraphrase it, but got the thought from him today. But it was no, I totally lost it. uh, what did you just say?
I was talking about how, where there's as many
Oh,
religions as there are people,
you're
and
if the more, basically, the more judgmental you are of other people is just a measurement of how loud your internal criticism is.
yeah,
And so oftentimes when you're very criticizing of somebody that you see outside, it's just something that's internal, right? It's just it's a reflection that you're seeing of yourself. Um, I don't know what happened
yeah,
to my
the
thought though.
projection.
I don't know why I was saying that.
No, that's totally fine. I we Whenever I have these real far out conversations, I'm like, oh, I'm too out there. I gotta come back a little bit.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's just such an interesting time where, just to have the liberty and the freedom to be able to like kind of go about life and the way we want to, and to, I don't know, go on these kind of like journeys of discovery of ourselves, so much farther than we
Right.
have been as humans. It's just,
So you said that essentially, so we came out of the Pisces age, right? Which is like the two fish, the yin yang, entering into the Aquarian age, which you said was the genderless child, the hermaphrodite, essentially, right?
yeah, it kind
And
of plays
that's
that, like that polarity.
is that. I mean, I'm kind of seeing the metaphor, the analogy here. But you have the yin yang. The yin yang combines, and that does kind of become formless, identityless, right? Because it's now everything and nothing at the same time. And how long do these ages last?
According to like different, well, a lot of people say around 2,165 years is like the most kind of, and then yeah, 2,150 years, kind of around there.
Gotcha.
It's yeah, and it's really kind of like a newer consciousness. So what they say makes the difference is that our spring equinox will come closer into the Aquarian age instead of being more towards or in the Piscean age. We'll have our summer equinox will start to move into the Aquarian age. Now, that means like the sun is going to be passing over the equator during the Aquarius age, or during the Aquarius time. So a lot of that is like kind of the consciousness that we are really dealing with at that time. Back when, let's say, like the Taurian age, a lot of religions and everything was based around the cow. Agriculture, even worshiping the holy cow in Hinduism.
Would this be like
A lot
BC
of
though? Because this is 2,000 years ago, Taurian age.
Yeah, so the Taurian age would be what, like 4,200 years ago. Then we moved into the or into the Aryan age, and then into the Piscean age. So
Right.
Aryan age is kind of like when we were in that Greco-Roman phase, and actually when we did start to worship the masculine. Aries is Mars, is where we worship Mars and the god of war. So that was all about kind of more of that masculine mentality, and as far as like in competition with others. And so, yeah, the Piscean age is where we were supposed to start learning how to really be able to kind of move through those energies, through the masculine and feminine. And a lot of people would even say that, like, that's why these more patriarchy type of energies took out the feminine and that's what has been causing this huge kind of imbalance as far as what's going on in the world today. Or it's just that the feminine hasn't totally come out of that hiding of the yin and yang is like the black, and there's a little bit of light in the dark, a little bit of dark in the light, and it's just kind of interchanging. And so, yeah, we were supposed to really be putting those like worlds together. And then, yeah, it moves so fast that you get back into like this one aspect. And a lot
Right.
of
So
that
this is almost like the last step, right? I guess going with the last couple, we had, the yin yang, which was the two forces colliding and figuring themselves out, and then they finally kind of merged together, and now we're in this Aquarian stage where it's again, it's like it's kind of almost a paradox that in order to combine, you lose identity in a way, and
yeah.
this goes for 2,000 years, where we will end up potentially unified fully again. Is that kind of, am I understanding it
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, in a certain sense. Yeah, exactly. And I like it's kind of funny when you're saying the Piscean age and like two different people, maybe that's where this concept of marriage really was a part of that age. And as far as like how when we go into marriage, it's usually because we're becoming unified into, combining both of those energies and really like kind of filling the voids, but also amplifying the energy within ourselves. But now I feel like that's how we used to do that. We used to reflect it off of our counterparts, right? I think now we're just going to be reflecting from ourselves. Everything's going to be about our inner masculine and feminine kind of relationship, how we go about those different energies within ourselves. And I think that is kind of why men are having a little bit of a hard time right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying all men. I feel like there's a lot of men that have been tapping into that creative, more of those like feminine, when you think of the feminine, it's the receiving, the dancing, the flow, the garden that you want to nurture. It's all of these creative flows as well. So has been a lot of men that, like got that kind of that download and that feeling, or that drive to start to pursue things a little bit more, as you see, more balanced, finding their own feminine aspects within. Same thing with the women. I feel like even the whole sexuality aspect of things, how do we get created? What happens right before we're created as beings, Sexuality it runs the world. A lot of our churches are based off of sexual energy. We see a lot of the different windows. They look very phallic, the womb spaces, and so, yeah, I feel like even women now are kind of going on the opposite end where men were in exploring those sexualities and kind of being maybe what we would say more masculine about it.
So it goes back to like, I have this desire to be like, so is it right or wrong? And I guess the answer always is that it's neither.
It's kind of, yeah, it's really what is right with you, and what
I thought I was having when you were talking about when we were talking about kind of gender roles, kind of women stepping into their sex work and stuff like that. Kind of, anyway, it's kind of on all these things, but it's that so I've been hearing a lot of talks lately talking about that. Is it right or wrong? They're saying it's wrong because they're saying, as a result of more women being able to protect themselves and provide for themselves, they don't need the man. That's giving to more sexist relationships. It's giving to more divide in the genders, and a lot of people are saying that that's bad because birth rate is declining to a point that may be irreversible in some countries. I'm I don't I'm not a master of data and things like that, but I've heard people talk about it, and my overall understanding is that some countries are currently reaching a point where it may be difficult to come back from, because simply when the young people become old, there's not going to be enough young people to take care of them. And it's not so much about that people aren't still having kids, but they're not having enough kids to where it's just the divide between ages is going to get very vast, and it's going to create some weird things, and there's not going to be anybody to take care of the old people essentially. But
True.
and so that, again, it's framed in like a right or wrong thing. I forgot exactly where I was going to go with that, but I'll keep going. Maybe it'll come back around.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No,
essentially, we're
that's
coming into this period now where it is identityless. It is the void of identity. And I think something, I mean, I was talking to you a lot about when I last saw you, I think like a year ago, and I was really starting to kind of have these revelations and understanding of the esoteric wisdom of what religion was trying to speak about, because I think there's always been this like tension between people are trying to separate the mind and body and spirit when really they're supposed to be unified in the Holy Trinity. It's not supposed to be separated. You're not supposed to be the monk floating on top of the mountain. You're also not supposed to be the dragon hoarding the gold, and you're not supposed to be, up in space. I guess you're supposed to connect the three parts together. And that's, I guess, when we find peace again. But so we're in this
yeah.
like kind of this season now where, because I was thinking a lot about how it feels like in this day and age it is a war for identity, and kind of just maybe it was God talking to me, I don't know, but it's just this, I started having this realization last year. I was like, I need to figure out who I am, and I need to figure out who I am now. Like, there's an urgency for me to figure out who I am, because if I don't do it now, it'll get harder and harder to figure it out, because the deeper we go into this high-tech algorithmic society, the more we are losing almost uniqueness, and it becomes more predicted, and not only predicted, but it becomes shaped, because the algorithms not only know what you want, it knows how to make you want things, and so the unique identity that makes each of us who we are, I feel like there's like a challenge right now, because there's such a war for our attention. We're so concerned about what's happening on the other side of the world, and we're so concerned what's happening on the other side of our country, and paying very little mind to what's even occurring in our own homes. And there's such a and there's so much noise. There's so much noise all the time that it's like so difficult to hear your own thoughts, and to kind of like, I guess I'm just saying, I really feel that. I feel that feels like what I'm sensing in the world right now, is that there's this lack of identity, there's a lack of self, and maybe my feeling of the sense of urgency is partially right, but maybe I think the urgency is that I do want to know who I am, but also maybe it's not a bad thing that because this is part of the unifying. Maybe we need to go into the void of formlessness and emptiness to then come back whole again, right?
That's
I don't know if that made
been
sense.
the most, no, like to me, the void is kind of like a zero, like an egg. It's this dark womb space that's just, waiting to hold a creation. And yeah, it kind of goes into being able to go into that place where, yeah, you can enter the void. You can witness yourself in that space where, yeah, there's not all of these things kind of coming in and constantly telling you how to think, which algorithm to follow. Because you looked at this, we're going to suggest that you look at that, and just keep you in that space. New levels, new devils. We want higher consciousness. We're going to have to face a lot of these newer things. We want to be better at sex. We're going to have to face what it's like to have sex at our fingertips,
Ooh,
and
ooh, oh, that was good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, we're given all of these amazing tools, and some people will use them to build new things, and some people will use them to destruct. And it kind of just comes, like, how am I going to use this tool today? How am I going to
Mm.
use myself? Some days I want to be the destructor. you know, I'm all right, let me channel my inner colleague because, I got to just start like light this shit on fire. But also, yeah, it's like, well, what's your plan after?
Right,
And
right.
yeah, and it's, yeah, we have just all of these, we have the ability to do all of these things, and it's just kind of like every single day, how do I want that to look for me, and to be able to, yes, get away from it and just kind of enter a room where you get to have like basically a blank canvas of what you think about. You'll start to see, oh, these thoughts keep coming up, and this is maybe why I'm really stuck here. Or, you
And
got
I love
to,
that reframe that you made because I think that's really important. That it's kind of like I think in the Bible it says like God only sends you his hardest battles to his strongest warriors or something like that.
yes, yes. And I think, yeah, I think just, tackling those thoughts of, obviously you've been doing a lot of tackling to where you're just, what you're thinking is what you're doing. And I think that's kind of what comes with a lot of people too, is like, okay, I really want to put a podcast, so I really want to do a podcast, so I'm going to actually do it. And for a lot of people, we just, yeah, we get stuck in those distractions. And what truly, truly is our value is time and attention. How much
Mm,
time do we put into and attention into these things? Those are energy forms. Time
right.
is an energy that we're all running on. And it's just, seeing past and why those things are there for us, why they want us to be on these apps for so long. Why do we hold our apples, our bitten in apples, like we're praying all day, And there's so much that they want us to be worshipped and distracted, and they want all of that attention, knowing that if we all put attention into, hey, you know what, 10 of us are going to get together, no phones for 2 days, and we're going to go do this,
Hmm.
are we better off as people, or are we not? And to me, we'd be better off for it in so many ways, because that's what they want us to be doing right now, is to
I would say
be,
that, but then also like the play devil's advocate here, like
please.
I think we're for us to be at this stage of further self-discovery, we had to have that isolation and we have to have those distractions and we have to, because without that pressure we wouldn't have the progress, you know.
Agree.
So it's almost like yes, we would be happy, but also like you said, to have if we want to have incredible, like better sex, we need to have sex at our fingertips to force us to grow and to force us um, to be able to reach that next step. Like we don't get to reach that next step by staying comfortable. But then it's
Exactly.
interesting because like back to the identity thing, because it's like, and maybe this is just all part of it. Like we for being in an age of the hermaphrodite, of the genderless, we sure do have a lot of people trying to figure out what their gender is. And I mean, and that's probably just part of the puzzle. Is it's now a lot of people have this question in their mind, searching for the identity because maybe the identity has eroded away. And again, maybe it's not right or wrong. Maybe that's just part of the process.
No, I think, yeah, You know, and it's like, as far as the identifying and like how we want to be seen, also, there's coming to like a place where it almost like will be so fluid, you know, there will be this fluidity that it starts to change the whole way we start to see gender.
Mm,
And even, you know, even us having feminism coming into the world, let's say in the 1960s. This helped us change the way we see trans people. We see and we're able to, you know, lesbians, all of these different types of people, different sexualities, different likings. We were able to give room for them. And now we're starting to see like, oh shit, now we're not able to fit into this like religious box anymore. And, you know, we're not able to. So yeah, as we start to really allow those different consciousnesses to come in, you know, where women, you know, we're not going to be like, oh my God, I just, you know, as a man, I just had sex with a man. I am the devil. I am, you know, I'm saying I'm this, and to completely, you know, put themselves away versus like, whoa, like that was, you know, this experience that I got to have. And instead of fragmenting myself away, I get to kind of like add another piece of like who I am and this consciousness that I can gather from all around me, you know? And
I
yeah,
can't really
just
see myself having sex with another man, but I'm here for the
I'm throwing out
for
the
the growth
examples,
process
you
and
know?
figuring it out.
No, I just, you know, it's just throwing that out as an example for sure. But it's
No, I
like,
know, but and I'm going along with it. I'm just saying that I mean, almost like the implication is that like that's going to be part of the. I mean, again,
it could
I
very
think it's just
much,
it's all necessary pieces of, and it doesn't. The implication is that I might have to have sex with a man to figure it out. Hopefully, I don't know. That's who knows what it is. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's me 200, 300 years down the road, further down. And I mean, again, because I mean, I think every day society looks so different, and I can't to the point you're making. We don't like with how much stuff has changed in just 10, 20 years, 100 years, we might not recognize society. We might not recognize the way relationships go or the way gender identities are decided or assigned or followed. You know, like it might all just be so different by that
for
point.
reals. Because it's even like when you think about like when we talked about how, you know, kids are born to, you know, 50% of kids are born into marriages and 50% are not nowadays. Yeah, it's like,
Right, that stat has changed. Yeah, 45% or
yeah.
whatever has changed in just the last, 40, 50 years, 60 years, whatever.
Well, and even before the patriarchy that a lot of people are so, you know, stuck on really destructing in a certain sense. You know, their kids were raised by the villages. They're raised by a community of women until they're able to go off and do, you know, the hunting, the gathering, whatever, war. And so, you know, it's like were kids meant to be in like a house alone with just a mom, and you know your grandmother more than likely lives in another house, your auntie lives over here, you know, or were we supposed to be more in those family units, community units, village units, you know, and being able to learn kind of what the community needed instead of just individually like, you know, you have to get a scholarship before, you know, to go to college, and you
Right,
have to get a really
right.
good job, and you have to have a good job to pay for your um you know, your grass, what are your lawnmower and your
Lawnmower.
one car. And
Yeah.
every single person has to have that same exact setup, you know. And
Right.
it's like, wait, like actually we could live more community, like okay, you buy the lawnmower, I'll buy the weed blower. No, I'm just kidding, you know. It's just like it's being able
Yeah.
to like collectively go back into like us being able to individually do that. Now can we go back to finding those communities that serve our well-being. You know, I see a lot of people living off grid now, and you saying fuck the whole society thing, you know. It's like being able to live exactly how you feel like you need to live. You know, some people like to live with a small backpack, being able to go wherever they want to go. Some people want that mansion, you know. It's just really being able to be more individual
What if
about
that
it.
is the end of this though? What if that is the end of this chapter is, you know, it if you know what feels like a progression into pure isolation where everybody is an individual and lives their individual lives. There's no more family, there's no more collectives, communities. You know, like slowly we dwindle away until that's all that's left. And then one
Hmm.
person, and then once it becomes so bleak in that reality, some people start shifting the tide back, but it's almost like it's going to have to. I wonder in fear that it might have to get to that you know level of what feels like darkness for the light to shift back around again. And because I mean I just think it's always just this pendulum going back and forth, you know what I mean, and it just always is going to be swinging.
Hmm.
It's never going to stop in the middle. It's just always going to be swinging. And so it's just trying to like just go with it, and
Yeah,
it's
but what
so hard to
happens
like
when
accept that there's not a right or wrong though.
but because people are being so individualized and almost kind of like fragmented from each other, you know, I feel like that's the lone wolf journey that we kind of need to go on to be able to figure out how we can go back to the community and serve it to not the communities like needing, but are like how we let me reframe this. How are we going to help the community by making sure that our cup is always full to be able to fill to the community? Right now, we're constantly like so outside of ourselves that we, yeah, don't
Mm,
know thyself enough to say, okay, I'm going to be able to go across, you know, I'm going to be able to do this huge thing as long as my cup is served or is like filled in
right.
this way. This is how I know how to fill my, you know, I have to dance on a pole and completely lose myself for an hour. I have to go do the ice tub, and I have to, you know, also, I love to be with a lot of, you know, whatever. We're going to figure out exactly what feeds our souls and
Right.
individually. So, yes, people will get stuck, I think, in the individualism. I think people are definitely there. But once you, and especially me, I feel like I'm kind of like coming out of this finally. It's like I can show up every single day, cup full, heart on fire, because I know exactly how to go about this because I know myself so well. I'm not just
What's the
following
trick?
this guide every single day, you know. The
What is the
trick
trick though?
to allow and
What is the trick to keeping your cup full? You say allow.
well, that's a part of like going into that void space, and it's like,
Mm,
okay, I can do whatever I want now to feed my soul in a certain sense, right? Um, Obviously, not harming anybody. So, what does that look like for me, you know? And being able to partake in the little things every day. We get exposed to so many things, like newer things nowadays. Like I wouldn't be pulling tarot cards if I hadn't seen a few TikTok videos and a couple of
mm-hmm.
good YouTube videos, whatever. But yeah, being able to really just explore and to, for me, I really followed like my gut. I kind of made it to where I gave myself a place to just completely rebirth be with, I had to, with my two kids, like be with family and to, not have a fancy lifestyle for a long time.
Hmm.
I, I kind of went back, like, if you hear about Buddha's journey, he was a prince. And, he finally went outside of the castle walls and saw suffering and saw these different things. And there are those things that just pull you and want you, you just feel the need to like, I have to go figure this out. I have to figure out
Hmm.
myself out. Yeah. So for me, I just, and right now I'm seeing how much I can really kind of, be too individual. I can definitely have learned how to, just keep myself kind of away from
I'll say with
society
the
and stuff.
example of the
So,
Buddha, like it's not that this is but with the example of the Buddha, he left a wife and kid to go on in search of enlightenment. So then even with a figure such as him, like there's quote unquote what is perfection, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, perfection would you don't leave anybody behind, but it's like, I mean, he did what he did. It's not condoning this or that, but it is what happened, and it
yes.
is how he achieved enlightenment. Which kind of to your point, it's about filling your own cup first sometimes. But then I think there is just always going to be that tension, because the goal is to conjoin the parts, not separate the parts.
Well,
But
yeah. Yeah, well, and being able to, I think that is kind of like, even like with science, we're trying to get down to the most, fundamental, like what started life and, getting things
mhm,
down to like just absolutely fragment and extract and try to get things down to being able to experience at the smallest level. And it's like, yeah, there's like a certain point where it's like, okay, I don't, I can rebuild back up now. I've already like
mhm,
looked into all of these aspects of myself. I've looked at the feminine, masculine. For me, my masculine felt like it was like beating, my
right,
feminine side so
right,
much because I was just like, no, we're not chilling. We're not going to sit there and meditate. Um, there's all these aspects of, seeing your family lineage and those aspects that have fed into you and being able to like reparent yourself. There's a lot of these different dimensions that we can enter of ourselves that really help us, yes, nitpick it. Um, it's fragmented already. Let's check out the pieces and see what we still need, and then let's rebuild into something that's new and meant for me. And I think that's, yeah, we're just in an age of like destruction.
right,
And
right.
like we're like, oh yeah,
But I
give
think
the
I think that's
women
why each
some.
person have to. I think that's why each individual needs to. I mean, it's oftentimes like that's what I'm learning about how do you help other people. Sometimes you have to let them go through their struggle, let them go through the pain, because that's the only way through. In many cases, to allow people to like go through their fire and go through their hero or heroine's journey in their own way.
Absolutely. But really what I think it is like being able to have these concepts that we teach people, like, yeah, even the heroine's journey, like a lot of people just thought that it's the hero's journey of like, you're like King Arthur, you have to go slay your dragon and totally cut
Mm-hmm.
off your dragon. And the hero's journey is like, well, let me go get to know my dragon because I know I have a
Mm.
dragon inside of me, and yeah, it's being able to go down there and grasp onto your like your greatest powers, because a lot of those dark aspects of ourselves are what really do fuel us in so many ways, and grabbing on to all the aspects instead of rejection, separation is
I
what.
really liked that too. Because I've definitely never thought about it that way. Because yeah, the patriarchy has been, and this is kind of what I was saying at the very. I was trying to figure out how to articulate this at the very beginning, but the the feminine, when we were talking about short cycles and big cycles, whatever. But it's that the masculine is to just go keep killing things, go build something bigger, get more land, get more gold, right? And
Yes.
conquer
Extract.
whatever stops you, and the feminine is let me
Relational.
understand it. Let me yeah,
Yes.
let me bond with it. Let me merge with it. Let me dance with it a little while.
Exactly. Exactly. And
And it does be, and I see that two way in society too, because I mean, you had all these, you know, I've, and maybe this is wrong, because I think if you go back to Roman times, like what was legal in different times has obviously changed. I feel like, at least for the last hundreds or so years, there's been, um, you know, hedonism has been under the rug for the most part. I think,
mhm.
I mean, I think the only time that I can think of when a lot in history when hedonism as a whole was seemed to be more celebrated was like Roman time, right? That was like what you said was like the Aries age.
Mhm.
But I feel like since then, hedonism as a overall has been looked down upon, and I wonder if part of that is, again, that's like the masculine not cut it off; it doesn't get to exist. And now, as I feel like our culture is becoming more and more hedonic, it is because we're saying, "Well, hold up, let's get to know our flesh, our desires of the flesh. Let's get to know our, you know, worldly desires."
Absolutely. I think even masculine war is so much different than feminine war. You see
Mm-hmm.
this in the Greco-Roman mythology with Venus is the goddess of war, and Mars is the god of war. And Venus is more of like a strategic war of going in and killing the leader and wiping out some of the top people, versus Mars, like, fuck everybody, we're going to burn this whole down, burn down the people,
Mm-hmm.
burn down everything. Where Venus is going to kind of go in there and like, and more of that like feminine war, because women are war too, you know, we're we're monthly destructors if you really think about it, you know, we destruct our
I wonder if the
womb.
Trojan horse was more feminine then, because it was kind of like, instead of
Yeah, more
coming in full
strategic.
force, it was more like, let me sneak in and capture from within.
That's where like a lot of those goddesses, they're always like the goddess of war and wisdom. And wisdom
Mm-hmm.
is like is knowledge and experience put together.
Mm-hmm.
So not only again are you book smart, but you also know have done all the put your experience in and learned how to do. And so
Right.
yeah, being able to know, you know, that yeah, if I go in and I wipe everybody out, of course there's going to be people that come back and want to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, if I take out a few of these things and then we become relational and we try to yeah make you give some to get some type of vibe. That's more of a relational, and why we are even kind of being pulled to like those indigenous realms, because they are very relational to the world, to
Mm-hmm.
people, instead of just like take and yeah, don't give, or it being so transactional.
Right.
So yeah, so it's good stuff being allowed to allow the energies to balance out again. And yeah, the feminine, I think, you know, just kind of wrapping everything is like, you know, allowing those feminine aspects of us to come in are gonna be very, you know, it's gonna be chaotic to birthing anything new in.
Right.
Birth is very, you know, it's very bloody, it's very all the things, but it's yeah, it's so necessary to allow those feminine aspects, because the feminine is what births the new things in, you know, and
Right.
yeah, and just being
It's all
able
just part
to
of the
find those.
process.
Exactly.
Well, hey, I really love this conversation. Really glad we finally got to do it years later. Um,
It's been so good though,
is
yeah.
there anything else you'd like to share about what's coming up for you, or I don't know if you're not like too big on socials and stuff still, I don't think, right?
No, I now that I finished school, I got so much stuff that came to me during like the COVID times, and then I got more into spirituality and starting to practice, but I felt like I needed to learn more book smarts about it. So me going to
I feel
Naropa and
like you need to
then
write a book now.
I want to so bad. I'm going to. Yeah, I need to.
I feel
Not
like
only about
that's the
myself and my
podcast
family,
thing.
but
At the end of the podcast, the guest oftentimes announces or talks about their upcoming book. So this is just our preemptive of the book that's to come once you start.
it
But it's
is.
I'm sure it's
Yes.
coming.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's something
Of
I've been
course.
waiting to work on, but I wanted to get all of the gnosis from Naropa, especially. They teach us how to embody religion. So
Right.
yeah, now that I've like learned and feel more good about talking about things, not just, you know, I don't know. I felt like I didn't feel ready to totally speak about everything without kind of being back into school and in my research and all that kind of stuff. So feels good to be
Sure.
back into all that and put it all together.
Well, I can't wait to see what comes of all of it because yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a lot of preparation to. You were definitely, you're just a very vast source of knowledge about lots of different things, but particularly the realms that
Yeah.
lots of people are more afraid to tap into. So I think it's, I think it's beautiful, and I'm excited to see, yeah, what you start to do with all that.
Thank you. Yes, I will definitely. Yeah, I have some things already being in the works. I just got what is it called? The Final Cut Pro,
Hmm.
the Final Cut Pro things and stuff like that. So yeah, and then just having school done, it's like it's time. So thank you. I appreciate you
Oh, sweet.
seeing that
Well, thanks
before
for
it's
coming on.
even in. Yes, I will talk to you later, and I'll come see you in Texas soon.